So, hello everyone. It's nice to see some of you. Um, I hope that somebody arrived in this room and I won't be alone, but anyhow. And the next thing, I hope that this will work and I will share my screen. So now you can see it. And I hope that you can go to our webpage to the 8th chapter. And actually, before this, I wanted to kind of discuss what you've seen last time. So during the lecture um, acoustics with Anya, she said that there were just three of you, and you kind of. Was anybody there from you? No. Okay. Never mind. So let's try to repeat this then. Entire screen. So I hope you will like this part. So last time we had this class on spectrum analysis, and it was full with different options from here. Probably I need to do it like this. So we discussed. So you discussed some part of this lecture with Anya Tsuzova, and the main goal was to practice different recognition of different, so reading spectrum from here. And here you still have all those materials, so you can see that, for instance, here you have two words, big and bag, and you have two options, bag, big, and big, bag. And just looking at this spectrum, you can see that since formants here are high and here they are not so high, that means that bag, big is the correct answer, and this form will autograde you, so you can still practice this skill. And there is a lot of examples, and sometimes they get messy. So, for instance, here I guess it's longish, but I guess here is the longest one. It's like when you have all possible versions of 5. So it's easier to search it through just using Control F, and then you have the answer. Then it will be like boot, for instance. It's actually wrong. So the first one is not a boot. It's not boot. I guess what should be right here? I guess. So we have bit. I guess bit is the first. Then we have bat. Probably bat. Then bot. Then bat. Then beat. Boot is the last one. So I think the answer is bit. Then bet. Then bought. Then bet. Then boot. So I think this is the right answer, and you can. Oh, it looks like I have different answer. And what went wrong? Oh no. Maybe it's just. Oh, maybe it's other way around. So it's boot. Then bot. like this one. Oh no, I still have a different answer. And then probably there is a mistake with bat and... No, it looks like bat.
For me, it looks more like the first one is bad and the second is beat. Or... oh, sorry. I.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
This is the widest difference. Maybe this is the difference, like here. Hooray! So after a while you can manage even this complicated task. I think you can connect to Jitsi via your computer, and then you can follow our bits. So I think I've spent a lot of time doing these tasks, and you were the first people who that I expected to see them. So I hope that you will manage to make sense of it. The idea there are, and I think that you need to turn off your sound and mic. And now it's okay, I guess. Can you hear me? It's super stupid saying something like this to the person in the room. Okay. So the problem, I think you can just look at your screen and turn off your sound and mic, and then it will be okay. And there won't be any echo. Okay? So, there are 4 sections here. Vowel. I think stress is also nice, but I think it's much easier than the rest. Consonants. And the last one is guess an animal. It's kind of wild task when you need to type. So for instance, you type elephant, and then it said that it has a different answer. Then you type, I don't know, dog, and it say it's correct. So you can play around with this. So the last one is the most complicated. And I think that what was so you can play around on your own, and I think this is kind of useful thing. And today we'll talk about different thing because this was the last time. Okay, so now it's getting back to phonation and obstruents because we kind of skipped that part before the spectrum analysis. So, during our lectures, for all the time we discussed waves, Fourier transform, and tube model, and its application to vowels and sonorants. And today we're going to talk about airstream mechanism, phonation, and obstruents. Airstream mechanism is kind of I would say the beginning of everything, because it's kind of where you produce your sounds. There are not much options, but there's still there is a lot of different beauty in this part. So as you remember, in most cases we produce sounds with breath, so air going out of our lungs. And when the air moving outside our body, those kind of sounds called aggressive. And when the air goes inside the body, then these kind of sounds called ingressive. So majority of these of sounds are aggressive. So all sounds that I produced so far were aggressive. And ingressive sounds are when you're doing more or less the same, but when you are breathing in. So something like this, or
We don't hear you anymore, I guess. I'm
why?
not sure it's intentional.
Oh no! Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear. Now we can.
Oh no, sorry. And where I stopped?
Almost at the beginning of explanation.
Blah blah blah. Okay, so here.
Yes, someone.
So last time, through all the time we discussed waves and Fourier transform and tube model and how we can apply it to recognition of and describing of different vowels and sonorants. And today we are going to talk about airstream mechanisms and phonation and obstruents. Airstream mechanisms is the process where we produce air. It sounds a little bit stupid, maybe it's better to say. So what we are doing with air during the speech production. So airstream mechanisms are those caused in the sound production. And there are two classes of sounds. There are aggressive sound and ingressive sound. And the majority of sounds that I've produced was aggressive. So I breathed through my lungs out of my body. But it's also possible to use ingressive sound production, like something like this. Or it's even possible to speak like this. I can't! But I think it's hard for me, but it's possible. So, and here is the link to the web page that is not secured. But this web page contains a lot of different information about ingressive phonation, including some maps. So over here we can see map where there is some use of ingressive phonation for instance, for pain purposes or surprise, as I showed. But there is also a nice case of Swedish ja, and I think, oh no, I don't know whether you will hear the sound. Oh no, I can't see the video. I should have. Here. I don't know, maybe let's go there.
Hey from Umeå, biggest city in northern Sweden.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
Cool.
Famous for Stieg Larsson, the Northern Lights, plenty of snow, and an unusual quirk in the Swedish language. Let's check it out. And that means yes.
Here in Umeå, we say
And that means yes. How do you say yes? Teach me how to say it.
say yes.
How do you say it? Yeah. Do you have to like that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Just if you have a mint in your mouth. So,
Okay.
but like, can you say it? Yeah.
No? You're not shocked or scared or something. That's just
No, I think maybe it's just an easy way to say it. You don't have to open your mouth.
And so on and so on. So sometimes there are some sounds that produce like this, and this Swedish yeah, one of those kind of funny things in the world. There's also a lot of different things. Oh no, maybe there are even some recordings and spectrum for this. It's also nice to see that not only humans decided to use these kind of sounds, but animals also decided to do so. And the nice thing about cat purring is that they actually purr when they breathe outside and inside. So there is just small little pores between the flip. So you have the effect that. So you have the. So maybe you have an impression that your cat just can purr forever, but actually it like kind of have some small pauses in between. And yeah, and so there is a lot of about purring, and there is also a nice thing that some cats can't purr, and then they roar, and there is some nice thing about this. So there is sawing leopard that actually sounds like saw, so you can hear it after the lecture. But I think this is kind of rare thing in the world. It's just one Swedish word, and maybe some other smallish example throughout the world. But the rest is kind of less rare. So there are two types of glottalic airstream mechanisms, and the idea that during the production of speech you close your vocal cords, and then you produce some pressure moving the whole throat up or down, and then you will have the difference of the volume that will cause some sound. This case for aggressive glottalic airstream mechanisms is ejectives, and those are always voiceless, and there are several examples like comparing to the usual one like pa, cha, ka, cha, cha, ka. The idea that you have kind of, so during the production you will, so on the spectrum you will see something like burst, usual burst, and then you will see real, so the, you will see that intensity will go down and go up again, and this will be effect of the vocal cords closing and opening. The opposite of these are implosives, so those sounds that produced during when the vocal cords moving down. So you have sounds like b, d, g, comparing to usual one b, d, g, b, b, d, d, g, g. They are actually different, and so they are also present in different locations. The web page link here link you to Vols chapter, and I think maybe we can look at even just this map probably will be okay. So we have red one is implosives, and you see that they are mostly located in. So there are a lot of languages in Africa with those kind of sounds. What is this? Oh, it's kind of artifact of something else. Okay, and in Southeast Asia, over here. And the same story about adjectives. So adjectives there are several centers of adjective centers, let's say. This is like Caucasus. So all languages, all indigenous languages of the Caucasus have adjectives. There are some in Africa and a lot of in South America. It's actually through the coast in South America and North America. Okay, there is a strange case of Korean, but I think it's more like artifact, so I don't think that there is an adjectives in Korean. But anyhow, and there are also some languages that have both, but they are really, I think they are not connected, so they are like in the interjection, I would say, of those two areas. So I think this is the case of languages that were lucky to have implosives, and they also had adjectives from those languages in the contact or something. So it's interesting question how they get this system and what's happened here, but yeah, it's the different topic, I guess. Yeah, and there is also clicks that are found in South Africa in Khoisan languages and some Bantu languages that are connected to them. And I think that I can share the video with you. That is really impressive, I guess.
What is occurring, everybody? Welcome to Tosakaya. I am so sorry that this lesson took so long, but anyway, it was worth it, I believe. Right. So, like you'd say if you're riding a horse and go, to get the horse to go. So it's quite easy. It's just place your tongue on to the side of your molars. Ka, li, o, u. Okay. Ka, li, o, u.
And this one is the kind of the easy one. The next one will be harder.
And then you have the Q's. And that the Q's are pronounced, all right? So that is a, o, u. It's almost like it's like a whiplash almost, or like by using your tongue. So you go like see how I place my tongue on the of my mouth. It's like I don't play. It's not totally flat. It's just the tip of my tongue.
So you can practice to do this at home. I hope it will be okay for you and everything will be fine. I can't produce these cues myself, but maybe I can produce something like this, but not so like fascinating like this guy. It's also I want to share some MRI videos because they have them. So there is a web page called Seeing Speech, and here, for instance, you can see what's going on in MRI. There is also some kind of animation, but I don't know what is going on there. So this is the model. This is the MRI. And this is ultrasound.
EP, APA, EP.
And this kind of IP table, but it's also possible to use this with those kind of thing. And let's see what's going on with Wheeler. So I will repeat it. Actually, this person is, it's not natural production of adjective, because this person is probably Janet Beck, and her pronunciation is not natural for me, so I would produce it differently. But that's what we have. Maybe ultrasound is kind of useless with this, but let's see. Okay. Can she? Is it? Yeah. For some reason, she produced clicks as if it was adjectives, and sorry, adjectives as if it was clicks, but. So clicks are more realistic for her, but adjectives are not realistic. Let's check out her. I think here with implosives, it's really quite nice. Nicely, you can see what's going on. What's going on during the production on this part. So if you look at her throat and her vocal, where should be her vocal cords, then you see the drastic movement to the downwards during her production, and the same should be produced when she produces adjectives. Okay, let's move on. So those are different airstream mechanisms. So after we produce some airstream, we need to produce different phonation types, because when we produce our air, some air through and make it go through our lungs, there is also possible to change and modulate it somehow using our vocal cords. There are several positions, and it's possible to have play around with these vocal cords. The most, I think, used in linguistics are modal voice, creaky voice, and breathy voice. So modal voice is the most natural when we just speak with our vowels, for instance. So R, E, and so on. So this actually showed here with the B. No, it's vocal cord. So maybe D. So vocal folds vibrate. No, it's breathy. Where is the? Oh, maybe they mean, okay, they mean C, but with the, imagine that there is some vibration. So it's not like pulled down, but air can go through the vocal folds, but it can vibrate. So modal voice, it's when we have this kind of thing. So it's the natural thing. The rest is it's also useful to have something like F, and E. So vocal cords are widely open, and air can go through them, but it's not causing them to vibrate. So this will, as a result, you will get the voiceless sound that we used to, or breathing. Okay, and creaky voice. Creaky voice are it's. So the idea of creaky voice, it's where you have your vocal cords. They are kind of So they're connected to each other, but they're not so close to each other. We're just using the link over there so we can go there and see the slides. And I'm also recording it, so everything that you'll say will be can be used against you. When we have creaky voice, the vocal folds are held together, but the air can go through them. And this causes the longer phase of glottal period, and the vocal periods that we've seen before when we analyzed vowels are kind of won't be so visible. They will be just abrupted during the production. And breathy voice is when the vocal folds vibrate but without much contact. And this speech, when we, for instance, go upstairs for a long time, and after a while we are talking with this aspiration, this is the breathy voice. And in some languages, these sounds that produced with this kind of breathy voice are used as a distinctive feature that distinguish some words. So there is a scheme that make it possible to see different phonation types and their description that we can use afterwards. Is there any questions so far? Because afterwards I will go for an examples. I would just end with the suggestion by Peter Ladefoget that it's so I distinguish here and proposing user types, but it's possible that it's just some scale. So there is everything in just some point of this scale. So, do you have any questions so far? Are you alive? Can you meow for me? Oh no.
Everything is all right. Yes.
Thank you. It really is supporting. Okay, so we can move on. For some reason we're going too fast, but anyhow. So the first example is what we'll see during on breathy phonation, when we have breathy phonation. So on the consequence of this breathy phonation is that you will see noise all over the sound, even with vowels. So the intensity will be all intensity will be slow, not slower. The value of intensity will be lower, and everything will be less visible through the spectrum. So here we have this example for some Mazatec word when we have two words and vowel with the vowel a, with the normal pronunciation and with the breathy voice. Actually, I kind of skipped some part from here. I forgot about this, but here we have weird videos that will show you the view from vocal folds, so they work. But this kind of scary thing, so if you, it's possible that you won't be happy to see it. So if you want to see it, please just use those links. I hope they will work. Okay. And the last thing is creative phonation. So this is again, it's irregular, and here we have the example of some regular sound, more or less. And here we have cycles that they abrupted by something, so you see that the difference in so they are not so regular. Like for instance, here we have pum, 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 everything is regular. But here we have some cycles, then there is some then there is some, so the period length increases, and then it decreases and go into something else. I think it's sometimes called frying also, so you can see, you can find some videos why everybody fries. I'm bad in production, this creaky voice phonation for some reason, but the most effect is just as if you are really tired. Okay, and I think this is the end about different phonation types and airstream mechanisms. Do you have any questions so far? Wonderful. Then let's move on to obstruents. So here is this some nice scheme of obstruents that even consonants that we came up with Inna, and I created for our lectures. So here we have consonants, and they are divided into obstruents and sonorants. And sonorants are divided into nasals, approximants, and trill and taps. And the obstruents, they are the point of our interest today, are divided into stops, fricatives, and affricates. And the difference between them is the actually in amount of turbulent noise. So when we have stops, the amount of turbulent noise is like smallish. So we have, I don't know, something voiceless, then a ta, and then that's all. So we have t. When we have fricatives, the turbulent noise is, the value of turbulent noise is higher, so you have and when we have affricates, it's actually a combination of fricatives and stops, so we have stop at the beginning and fricative at the end, so we have and this is partially made from, so it begins with t and ends with s. So this division between sonorants and obstruents, I think, is straightforward. The most important that sonorants are mostly voiced, but it's possible to have voiceless one. In most cases, they are more like vowel-like things. So they have some formants or shape or something like this. Okay. So yeah, and here is some list of features for obstruents. So you have much more restricted airflow and little or no formant structure. The main factor that they determine whether airflow is turbulent is the size of the channel and the volume or the volume velocity of the airflow. So if the airflow is moving with the high speed, then you get some turbulent sound through some area. So there is some calculation that will be more important in the next section. So for frequent, so since we can model this turbulent noise with some, we can still use our tube model in order to model this noise placement. So, for instance, we have here some examples of velar and palatal consonants compared to a single tube model. So, single tube model at the beginning is schwa, and if we have a really restricted bottleneck, let's say at the middle part of the our tube, then it will influence our performance and put some predictions on what's going on. So if you have, for instance, or maybe, but I think it's for velar and palatal, so it's not applicable to. So these kind of examples are not applicable to other. So if in font 9060, I think it's just one example of this, and I hadn't decided to use any other. For stops, I think it's important to say something else. So, for instance, when we have this turbulent noise, we can allocate this through spectrum and somehow analyze. But when we have stops, the only thing that we have is something like pause and then burst. And in most cases, this pause and burst are kind of not distinguishable. Unless you have something like co-articulation. And so this co-articulation thing is presented here. So we have three vowels, E, O, and U. And we can see the changes of those vowels due to the place of articulation. So in most cases we analyze this as some equilibrium position for each consonant, and vowels will try to attract. So this will be some attractor, and vowel formats will kind of try to move to this direction. So when we have labial consonants, then all formants except labialized one will try to move down. So for instance, when we have B, then you will see really drastic movement of formants to the bottom. When we have dental, again, the locus there will be over, I don't know, 1,500 or something like this, or maybe higher, maybe 1,700 or something like this. So that's why we see just small difference in D. There is no any difference in D, and there is small movements toward the higher values for Do, and really big movements through Do. And we kind of can't see the same effect for G, because so for Gu and Go they going upward, but G and G they kind of there is no any movement in G, and there is slight movement in G, I guess. And there is also different varieties of stops, so also can be distinguished using voice at onset time. And this kind of notion of what is the distance from the burst to the vocal cords vibrating of the next vowel. So for voiceless stops, it will be positive value. So, for instance, I don't know, pa, you will see the positive value from burst p till a. For Russian style voiced things, where we have a voice through the whole closure, then it will be voiced, so it will be, the value will be negative. And for affricates and for adjectives, it will be higher than just a voiceless one. So for instance, when we have atza, the voice onset time will be longer than atta, or even with Russian style pronunciation atta, when without any aspiration, it will be much shorter. So describing what's going on after the burst and how long the closure will get you to some information about the consonants, because there is also possible to have something like prolongated closure, and then it will be the case of geminates, for instance, when we have ata or we have atta. So in that case we have prolongated closure, and this also comparable to different types of sound. So I think we will have some practice during today's lecture, today's lecture. But I think the most important here for that it's possible to use closure duration and voice onset time as a measurements of different distinct thing that can distinguish different thing in different languages and within the language or even across them. And the problem with the cross language difference is kind of it's not universal. So there is no any universal value that after this duration this is aspirated and not aspirated, for instance. It's a scale through all languages. Yeah. So during the practical analysis, I suggest you to use this audio and text grid in order to extract some spectral information. Use LPC smoothing. So LPC smoothing is the idea that when you perform some, maybe I can do it myself. So I open link a new tab. It will ask where to save it, and I will save it to the desktop. And we'll use prot. And if I open this, and it was fricative, I guess. No. Oh no. Modified. Here. And probably it's possible. Oh no, I open it. It's not important. So we can get back. And if I open this with prot, you'll see something like this. So over here we can see some examples. Like this, with some consonants. And what we can do, we can use spectrum. So I selecting the whole. So if we go there and zoom, it's actually nice to see that the difference between them is definitely the spectral one. So for instance, when we have asa, maybe I need to increase the spectrum information for something this, I guess this is better. So when we have s, you see that the peak is going to 9,000. It starts from 4,500 hertz. When we use sh, it just go through the whole spectrum, but again with some places with the peaks. So it's 4,000. It's here we have 2,000, and something is going even higher, maybe. If we go to flu, it's again we can see some picture. And here, and here. I try to produce it so it's not the natural speech. And the first aspect that this is my speech. The second aspect, this is not natural speech. I try to use it prolongated and mostly accelerated speech. So it will be comparable across different sounds. So as I'm describing here, what I want you to do is to go and create a spectral slice. We actually done this before. So we can go spectrum and view spectral slice. And after this, you will get something like this in your prod. So there will be a prod object with all possible values. So over here you can see that there is some, so for when we see on the x-axis it's hertz, on the y-axis is amplitude in decibels. So this is not comparable because, so we see some peaks and some trends in this speaking, but again it's really different. So it's possible to use some, maybe convert to LPC smoothing. So it's possible to use some smoothing effects that will make the straight line of it. So here we have peak on 9,000. Let's compare them, because it looks like they're not much not much of a comparison, but I think here and here, so it's over smoothing actually, but this resembles the effect, and the beginning will be amplified, so this could be a problem. I think we can play around with some some parameters. So this is pre-emphasized. If I do this, oh no, it's even smoother. Oh no, maybe they produce this same thing, so it's better to, yeah.
So, and when we do LPC smoothing, should we like have a number of peaks 5 and going phases 50 like here? We shouldn't change something?
I think it's nice to have them. So now I'm trying to make it more useful, because for now actually what I want to do is go other direction and save as a text file. No, probably tabulate. Okay. Save as text file to my desktop. And what I want to do is to open it in R and use smooth option from there, not using LPC smoothing from prod. Maybe it makes sense. But for you, maybe it makes sense, much easier to use. So I will try to do it on the fly. Probably it's something like this, and it's desktop. And the name was like this. Oh no, it's not what I wanted. Oh, okay, so I needed to use this one. Okay, and if I open it over here,
Забыла, что уже говорили, что хотела ваших студентов разобрать. Извините.
okay. So, and I think it's better to see something like this. So what we see on the spectrum over here, and it's easy to use just smooth over here, and we'll get something nicer. Not so nice, actually. But I think that you need to adjust more splines. Oh no. I think this is what we actually kind of getting when we use this LPC smooth with, whoa, wait. So when we use convert to LPC smooth and standards, it resembles what we see here. But yeah, so I think that I know some tricks how to make it to be more adjustable to, so actually adjust to those peaks over there, but I think it will take more time for us and will be much more complicated than I want it to be. So, yeah.
Yes, I just can't find here the list, so after taking.
Sorry?
I can see where should I list after I do tabulate for
Where to list?
yes.
No. Oh.
Objects tabulate list and there is nothing here.
Sorry, is it in the description? Okay, maybe. Or maybe it's a mistake, yeah, sorry. I think it's a mistake. You don't need list.
What should we do?
So after you just press OK, and after it tabulates, so, you created some table, so you can view it. It's something.
So there's this table fricatives and
It's frequency and power.
we should just review it.
Sorry?
Should we just review it?
We
We should view it here in what?
we can view it here, but the idea was to save it as a comma separated file.
There are two columns.
Yeah.
One is
is power. So it's more or less correspond to intensity. So in these frequencies, this is more intensity than in others.
So we just can save it like as CSV?
Yes, yes, exactly. So my idea is to run this thing and create some CSV, or not text there, but CSV files. And oh no, this is kind of oldish file, but I think it will work. And put it in the separate folder on your computer, because this function looks at the folder and reads everything from there. So it makes sense to put it in the separate folder when you have, for instance, fricatives, and then you have l.txt or tsv or with so all those examples, as here an example. As a result, you will get something this, I hope, and let's have it as a task. And I think that I pause recording for a moment because it's useless to be recorded.
Yes, and also, are we supposed to have 5 files, text files?
Yes, yes.
I just didn't know how to do it because I have just one file here.
No, wait, because in audio and text grid you have annotated five different consonants. So you extract them all and save them separately. So you go here, 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 no, here. So you go,
Just from text grid extract?
no, not from text grid, but because you need some spectrum information. So you open the text grid and use, so let's go from the beginning. So Control L, and you have the new one. Let's rename it and call it S. I move forward, press Control L, rename it, and call it SH. Oh no, it's SJ. Let's rename it back to SH. Control L, rename, and you will have L. It's not important for this, but I think when you have multiple things, it makes sense to have them named because it will be a mess in a moment. Unfortunately, it's not possible to oh wow, it's possible to convert them all into the LPC smooth. And you will get them all. Wow, that's cool. I didn't know. And then, is it possible to tabulate them all? No. So afterwards, so this is new produced thing that we can view over here. But if I want to plot them, oh no, maybe it's possible to draw them. But then you need to have some solutions. So here, I think this is a cache. What we'll see here. Yeah, it's possible to visualize it here, but it's possible that there is a mistake. Let's compare. Yeah, the problem is that the scale is different for each. So you see multiple zeros and multiple 20s and multiple 40s. That's because they all plotted, but thoughtfully. So without any thought about scale. That's why I don't need like prop picture. But it's possible to adjust them with if we ask them to erase all and draw, and here we have, for instance, minus 20 and 60, and here we have from 0 to, I don't know, what is the range, to, for instance, 22,000. Okay, so here is the same scale, and I think it's the same plot as here. But again, you don't know which color is which, so this is the problem. So it's not distinguishable. So you don't know which line goes for which sound. And I don't know how to again make it so correct this automatically. That's why I don't like Prod Picture, because it's not so powerful tool for drawing pictures. So in order to make it the good way, I think you need to plot one file by file using different colors in Prod Picture. But for now, the next step will be just tabulate, okay, save as comma separated file, CSV, and that's all. But it's not important. So you can. So I changed it to CSV. You can keep it as table. It's not important for the script. So let's hope that it makes some sense, and I will pause for waiting you to finish the plot. So there is a question: what if we want to smooth with R? It wasn't actually the question, but I will reframe it this way. So imagine that I have S. So I have some of them extracted here. So I will use tabulate, okay, save as top sub, no, save as,
And should we extend the whole sound?
yes, and this will be SCSV. So if I open it here as .csv, I can change them here, and then bind rows use it like this, and then the smoothing will be done in R. And it's also possible to remove this curve, and it will be like this. So you can do either way you prefer. I think it makes sense to analyze what we have in the second task. So we have this CD and VOT, but I think it makes sense to download them and look what's going on. So here I download them, and then I can open them with prompt that is here and here, and edit. So here we have 4 different types of sounds. We have the same consonant k, but in different condition. It's the just aspirated. Oh, sorry. It's just aspirated t. No, what do I mean? So when we have CD and VOT, yeah. Okay, so it makes sense. So what we're analyzing are different k's. So it's aspirated k, it's adjective k, it's geminated k, and adjective geminated k. So if we look at them, so what we can see over here, so we have consonant, then we have vowel, then we have this consonant, and this is divided in the CD, that is closer duration, and VOT, so voice onset time, so time before the vowel starts in that case. So here we have k, and you see some aspiration over here. That means that after the burst there is some aspiration, then nothing, then vowel. If we move to another option, maybe another option like here, check. So here we have k, and we have closer duration before burst. Then here we have
Check up.
not much actually happening over here, so it's not. So maybe I want to analyze this one.
Check up.
Yeah, so here is more obvious. So here we have closer duration, then we have burst, really intensive burst. Then we have really nothing. So if we put their intensity, it's not visible, but it's here. So I don't know how to. Is it possible to change color of intensity? Intensity settings. No, unfortunately, it's not possible. So anyhow, it's we can use spectrum settings in order to make it. So we can do it like this, and then yellow line will be more visible. So if you look here, intensity falls down, and there is no any intensity, and then it gets back. If we analyze the same, for instance, in k, there is no any intensity to after the burst. There is no any intensity, so it goes down a little bit, but it's not like to 0. And that is the effect of the effect of so it's not visible here, but it's visible here. Effect of adjectives. So in accurate pronunciation, it will be like this. When we analyze geminated, maybe in accurate pronunciation, we have closer duration, then we have VOT, and this VOT part is really long before the vowel starts. So here we have this vowel, but before it, it's really long. But this part is also really long. So if we look,
Ukudu.
ukudu. So if we move to this, here we have the most strange sound in the from this branch. This is adjective and geminated at the same time.
Backup.
So it's backup. So maybe here will be
Backup.
So the idea that this burst is kind of like scraping further, so it's in there. And again, we divide it into CD and VOT, and when we get to the plots, the actual plots that we can see over here, we can see that the geminated overall longer than non-geminated. You can see it by these bars, comparing those bars. In all cases, whenever, so in overall in clear phrase, all pronunciation are shorter, but in all other utterances, in the accurate utterances, it's all the time it's the structure is the same, but they all longer. And yeah, and if we compare CD and VOT, we can see that for adjectives, comparing adjectives and non-adjective sound, the CD part is the same, but when we have adjectives, the VOT part, so after the burst, is shorter. When we analyze, so we compare them, so for geminated, then both CD and VOT are longer. And when we have adjective geminated, then it's even longer. It's the longest of all of them. And the VOT part is more or less the same, of the same length, but I think this is no, sorry, and VOT is between the VOT of geminated and non-geminated adjective one. So yeah, and that we can see from absolute values, but it's also possible to compare ratios, and ratios is not so distinguishable. So ratio between VOT and CD through all consonants are more or less similar, but geminates are more, tend to be half and a half, and geminated adjectives tends to have a bigger CD part, so closer duration part. And that's what we can make from these plots. And that's what I wanted to finish this part. And finishing the recording.